everyone. Welcome to the Wellbeing Project. You're with Karine Rayson from The Crew Coach. And I'm so pleased to have Jacqueline with us, or Jacqueline. She is in Canada and she's a creative grief coach. Now, I know in our industry, we have to contend with a lot of grief. I was providing counseling for a super yacht for, I think it was 20 crew members. In fact, there was a death on board. And not only can incidences on board cause grief, but in our environment, there might be a death back home, or someone might be very ill and we can't get back home. I know that I was in a situation where my dad told me that he had severe cancer and he didn't think he was going to survive. And a lot of us, I want to say, lay down our lives for yachting. I felt that I couldn't go home, but being older now, I would definitely have left my position to go home, and thank goodness he survived and he's okay. But I think having your expertise, Jacqueline, is just amazing. We're so fortunate, and I cannot wait to learn more about you and your offering within this interview for Yachting International Radio. In addition, I know that we're collaborating next year for the TTC Tribe with regards to running a workshop for the greater community so that you can, as listeners, access Jacqueline's expertise. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to see you again, Karine.
Thank you. So how did you get into the world or the profession of grief?
We talked a little bit about the creative grief coach, and that comes actually from the fact that I'm a trained art therapist. So I have been an art therapist since 2000. I sometimes don't even want to count the years, but it's 21 years now. And so I worked with lots of different people, different ages, from children to the elderly, that had challenges in their lives. And then in 2013, my mom died. And although we all expected it to happen, I thought I was prepared, but I wasn't. So the grief that followed was really tough on me, and I just didn't know what to do and how to help myself. So I got a little bit stuck in a not so healthy way of just working a lot, crying a lot, but not moving forward in a good, healthy way. And then my spouse called me out on it, and he said, that can't be normal, was the word he used. And I totally don't like that, because all our grief is so unique and so normal, however we react to it. But I realized that he was right. I was stuck. So all of a sudden I realized, hey, I'm an art therapist. I should know how to deal with my own feelings. So I took out my art materials and started to journal, to paint. And now I'm really saying art making is the most effective way to heal a grieving heart and grow actually around the grief that envelops us.
Wow, what a beautiful story, and fascinated, given our expertise in the counseling profession. Sometimes we don't even realize that we're stuck, and we need an outsider's perspective to shine the light on that. So now that you've gone through that experience, and coupled with your professional knowledge, how does one know that they're stuck? What are the signs that you should look out for?
In my case, it was really that repeating kind of patterns of things that I did, thinking I was okay, but I wasn't. It can be also that you withdraw from all your family members, from your friends, that you just want to be at home. And I'm not talking about the first 1 or 3 months. I'm talking into long term, where you don't want to be out in the world anymore. And you are, just keeping to yourself. You also might experience that you will not find anybody that understands your feelings, and will have that feeling of, I better don't talk about my grief because nobody will get it anyways. And that makes it even harder for yourself to find that little spark or that person in your life that will support you. And so, reflecting on that could really show you that it would be a good idea to talk to a professional or visit a support group in your area. And there are lots of online possibilities now too.
Beautiful. Awesome. Just with my background as a counselor, we learn different modalities, and I love creative art therapy as well. And I think there's certainly a time where it can be extremely effective over other types of therapeutic modalities. But then what I've also noticed that sometimes you can be faced with resistance. So when I introduced it into the prison system, when I was working with men, they would say comments like, I'm not going to draw. How is this going to be helpful? So can you speak a bit more about that?
And I know what you're talking about. That has happened to me as well when I was working with the elderly, actually. And they just thought, oh, this is children's play. And it's really to step into that process. And I always say, you have to try it out before you judge and say that's nothing. And so, like you probably have experienced with your prison men there, all of a sudden they start to open up while they are making art, while they are creating, while they are painting or doodling or gluing. All of a sudden, all those stories are coming out because that process, doing something with your hands, brings up also the words that were missing beforehand, before you started to work with the art materials. And that's what I always find very interesting also to see when somebody is not talking during an art making process. Afterwards, they are much clearer on where they are stuck on and what worked for them and what didn't. And I'm always making this piece that sometimes people have come to me, they say perhaps they have lost a job and now they have to make a decision, where will they go next? And they just say, I can't make any decisions anymore. I just lost that ability. And through the painting process or the art making process, afterwards, I can reflect back to them that they actually made a lot of decisions during that whole process, where they choose a color, they choose a certain size of a brush or a pencil, and all those little micro decisions will show them again that this decision making is not the problem. There must be something else behind it. And it's just really, and you have probably experienced that too, that sometimes with the art making, we can slowly tease out what is really going on. It's really asking the right questions.
Yeah. And I can totally resonate with what you're saying, because that's exactly what happened when we were drawing in the group. And I used mindful coloring in, and they just couldn't stop talking. And it almost took away a barrier, that discomfort or awkwardness with regards to disclosing. And it was so beautiful. It's special to be part of that. And I can certainly see the effectiveness of it. And in addition to that, how fast it actually works.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Now, you are also an author. You've published your book. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, I wrote end of 2019. I just felt that it was really important to bring out hope into the world, that there is a possibility to heal your broken heart when you have lost someone. It's called From Grieving to Grateful, Heal Your Broken Heart. And it's a short read. I always say you don't need a lot of time to read it. A short read ebook, and short read because when you're grieving, sometimes it's really difficult to stay focused on one piece at a time. So I made it really interactive as well. There is a workbook that goes with it. And it's really telling the story of different women that have gone through a creative grief approach and have found different ways to cope with it. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I give a lot of I call them compassionate actions, where you can do an art making piece or a journal entry so that you can really move yourself forward in that regard. And my emphasis always is from grieving to grateful, so that you are grateful for the relationship that you had with your loved one who has died, but also grateful that you can take the love and the person and relationship that you had with you on your future way, on your path, on your healing path. And you don't have to leave anybody behind because you're moving forward.
Yes. And it's interesting that you say that, because one of my clients, he lost his best friend to suicide in yachting, but he wants to keep his memory alive and make an impact. And it's motivating him to leave a legacy. And that is to raise awareness of mental health issues. So he's going to travel around the world with a sailing yacht that he bought, and he's going to connect with the people that his best friends connected and share stories, and keeping that memory alive, because he doesn't see him as gone. He sees him as his soul brother, and he wants to keep him close. And it's lovely to know that once someone has passed, that relationship isn't terminated. It is not gone forever.
Exactly. And that's such a beautiful example of to honor your loved one, and really, that the storytelling, right? That all of a sudden you find other people that have their own stories with that person, and it just makes your relationship even bloom more.
Yeah. So I would love to hear, Jacqueline, your success stories, if you're able to share. So some of the clients that you've worked with, what has their healing journey looked like? I know that everyone's grief process is different, but if you can give us some insight, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, perhaps I have to back up a little bit. So in 2013, when I was stuck in my grief, and then I moved forward in a new way with art making and art therapy, I also took then classes in grief recovery and combined that into a program that is called Healing For Grieving Hearts. And it has a lot to do with going back into your biography also, painting, art making, and finding the resilience that you have that might be overshadowed by all the grief that is around. And so the success parts that I can mention is one woman that had lost her husband, and she had a business, and it just stopped her in working in her business. She closed the doors, but didn't tell anyone that she was actually closed. And it created a really difficult feeling for herself and her customers that still wanted to work with her. And then working through those 10 hours that we had together and a little bit more made her realize that actually giving to others and serving her customers helped her healing. And so she really had the confidence again afterwards to slowly open up, to give herself a good chunk of time to do that, and also reevaluate what was really the path she wanted to go with that business. But she opened up again, and I know she's thriving now, which is really beautiful to know.
Oh, that's amazing. And the other thing I wanted to mention about grief is that it might not be directly with a loss of a individual. It can be a career change. It can be finding your sense of identity after being a mum for so many years. Like, there's so many different aspects with regards to grief. Are you able to share some examples of those, of what grief looks like?
I have to admit, in the last 7-8 years, I have worked really with women that have lost a loved one, because I saw the need to help them. But beforehand, actually, I had been working with lots of mostly women and youth as well that were stuck in their own life and didn't realize and me neither at the time probably, that it was real grief that was happening. But they were stuck in not being able to give what they had lost a good place. We always worked with rituals at that time, and then also now with the grieving population, I work with rituals where you, for instance, if you had a job that you really loved and something happened during perhaps the last couple of months that we are in, those really special times where that job was not available anymore, or tourism broke down, and perhaps in your regard, perhaps there were not that many ships out there anymore. Mm-hmm. And so they lost their passion, what they lived for, what they loved. And with a ritual, you can give that feeling of, or I should say, you can give an acknowledgement to what you have lost. And something real simple is cut out some hearts out of paper and write on those hearts what you are missing with that job. Perhaps it's people. It could be the whole surrounding, the social interaction with others. Put that on those hearts, and then let it go into a river. Don't put it in the ocean, because it will come back with the waves, and we want to see them float away from us in a very loving way.
Okay.
So those are rituals that I say are really helpful. There are rituals where you can do something very similar with candles at home, where you have a candle for each of the losses that you have experienced. Perhaps it's the loss of identity at the moment, and give it a loving place by having the candle lit, and then perhaps sit there with your journal and write down what is missing in your life. Sometimes it's really important to acknowledge what we have lost to be able to move into a new direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And with your clients, do you have a formula or a structure with regards to the activities, creative activities you present, or does it really depend what's happening in the moment?
It's both, because the program is clear. I have clear kind of steps that I know that will help my clients. But at the same time, I also know that there has always to be space for interruptions. Something might happen in their life that nobody could predict. So there is always enough time in that whole program where we can really dig deep into other pieces. And so the flow is given, but it's very flexible and adjusting. Yeah.
So if people want to work with you, how do they find you?
They can find me on my website at healingforgrievinghearts.com, or on Instagram, Creative Grief Coach, or Healing for Grieving Hearts. I have 2 accounts there, and also on Facebook. Also Healing for Grieving Hearts. It's a Facebook page.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Jacqueline, for your time. And as I said at the start of the interview, we're going to be doing a workshop for all of you that Jacqueline will be running. I believe it's in March, isn't it, Jacqueline?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay. Have you started planning? You've got some sort of structure for it to give people insight, or was it too early to say?
What I really would love to do is bring some kindness to the whole training, definitely. And when I say kindness, is being kind to yourself. Because when we are grieving any loss, we forget to be kind to ourselves. We often just beat ourselves up over it, like that feeling of I can't make a decision and I don't know where to go next. And bringing back some kindness into your life, that would be definitely a part of it, and probably some compassionate actions and rituals. Yeah. But
it sounds so good.
Be surprised.
I'm so looking forward to it. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your knowledge with us. It was beautiful.
Thank you for having me. I'm really glad that you asked.
My
Take
pleasure.
care.